Funding for The Router Workshop is provided in part by Hitachi Power Tools, manufacturers of a full range of construction and woodworking power tools. Today, in The Router Workshop, the second of our special two-part series, The Corner Cabinet. Sharing tricks of the trade, router experts Bob and Rick Rosendahl show you how to combine a portable router and a table-mounted router with a special shop-made fixture to create two matching side panels for the upper cabinet. The Corner Cabinet Part 2. Today, in The Router Workshop.
Welcome to the Router Workshop, and this is the final part to our two-part series of the Corner Cabinet, Dad. And what are we doing today?
I'm looking through the holes at you here.
Okay.
We got a little bit of fretwork to do in here, Rick, and I'm going to let you do that. There's a lot of work to that, and I'll do the shelves.
You're going to do the shelves. You're going to make the pattern also.
I'll make pattern, yeah.
You're going to make my pattern for me. Okay. All right, and I'll get this out of the way, and you can get started.
I'm ready to go. As we said, we need a pattern, so we're going to start with the pattern. What I've done with the pattern is tack these pieces on here and line them up in it. We're going to run a router around the outside edge with about a 3/8 bit and a guide. And these are our pieces in it. This was the design that Rick and I chose for it, and then we cut out the inside parts in it. What's easier to do, people, is make a plug like this as opposed to a cavity. So we make the plug and then make the router copy it, and if there's any imperfections in there, then you have an opportunity to correct it. What I need to do first off is put a clamp in here, just to clamp that down and hold it for me. And I might have to slide that back just a little here. Give me just a little more room on my clamping area. Don't want the clamps to be in the road so I can't run the router, but we'll run this one in it. Now, what these were just little plugs in it, and I'm going to tack the last one in place here. Now you look at that and say, boy, you're using some long nails. Yes, I am. What happens is once we complete cutting this, then that piece would rattle around and I'd have no center on it. So I'm going down to this backer board that I've got. Now we'll take the router. I've got a plunge-type router in it. And what we've got here is that we've got a base down in it, but we've got a 3/8 bit and a guide in it. The guide will follow the pattern, and the bit will do the cutting, and it's moved in a little ways. But when you come back the other way, you'd say, well, I'm making the pattern bigger. Yes, you are. But when you put the guide in that Rick's going to do to cut the fretwork, he'll be back inside of it again. Now, what about depth in here? Well, our depth system, we'll put it down. I'm going through 1/4 inch material, so I'm going to just see what kind of setup I've got here. I've got a 3/8 and a 1/4 inch bar in here, so we'll put that 1/4 inch bar in it. You always want to cut through, but you don't want to cut that far, maybe. We'll give you a little bit of room in here, and that should do it. Switch is in the off position. Router bit is up. And we'll plug in and get some power. I'm going to cut around this first one. Now, when I'm inside of here, you look like I'm inside of a cavity, but no, I'm not. I'm on outside of a plug, so I'm going to have to go this way. You're going from the left, you're coming around this section. If I went the other way, it would pull me out into the pattern area. Okay, here we go. Now we can take our clamps off, lay those aside here, and this should lift off. There's the pattern. What you need to do is just kind of take the sharp edges off with a little piece of sandpaper, and remember now the guide's going in. If you see any little imperfections in there, just touch them up with paper and clean them, because they will show, because the guide's going to pick it up. So we'll set that pattern aside. I'll give that to Rick in a bit here, and then those are the plugs. We can throw them away after because we're done with them. Now, the next operation we have is the sides. And on the sides, we need to cut dados for the shelves. So I've chucked up a 3/4 inch bit in here because the shelves are 3/4 thick. And what we need to do is just set the depth on that. And I need half the distance of 3/4, 3/8, so we'll use our setup bar again, and we'll tighten it down 3/8 deep in it. And have another look in here. The bit itself in it, I don't use an insert because it's bigger than the hole in the insert, so we're running without. But what I do need to do is have a fence on here. Now the first one I'm going to cut is going to be easily enough to do it. Because, well, I don't want to use those clamps, I don't think. Rather than a quick adjusting clamp, I would sooner use something with a positive on it. Now the distance between here is 3/4 inch. That first shelf, I want 3/4 inch from the bottom. So in order to do that, we'll set it up here. I got a 1/2 inch bar and a 1/4 inch bar, and we'll rotate that bit out, and we'll put the second clamp on it. I'll turn the clamp down, and that'll up inside of it. We got the depth in it. Now let's look at the pieces. It's the inside where the dados are that shows on that cabinet. The other goes to the back wall. So I've kind of marked these in here, and I got them marked. I'm going to run this first one, and we're running off a common end. And I'll tell you what else is a little thing about these is one's off from the other one. But you'll see they got to be paired. So don't make them fit the same side of the wall. Now, we do need power again, I guess. Unplug that router, and we'll plug a different one in. And we'll cut the dados first. Did you notice the chips cutting out in front of me there? You want to go about that speed. Don't go any faster than what cleans ahead of you, and then you won't have any jam-ups in it. Now I've got to move it out and catch the second one, or the middle shelf, and I'm going to guess and say it's about there. And having a marked in it helps quite a bit in it. That one there, harder to see, we'll use the square side. You'll notice when I started, I had one flat edge up, the next one I had the round edge, and that's the difference in it. I'll have to gain me a little more on it. And we'll just set that up over there, and I'll put a clamp on it. And then I always like to check it after doing that, so we'll just make sure that I'm square in there and check, and we'll run them. Turn the switch on. Now, what I don't have is if I run this end in, I don't have any more table in it, and I could take a chance on that, but that's not much room to work. So what I'm going to do is just set that down like that, and I'm going to extend this. Remember, this is the back side, so you're not even going to see these little nail holes. And I'm going to just extension here a little bit over so I can have a spot to do it. And we'll tack them nails in it. And again, now we need to move that fence over and set it up into there. So we'll take the clamps off. That's just a good little tip for you when you get caught and have to come from both ends. And remember, it's important that you add them up. They have to come up to it because the other one's got to match it. So if the length isn't the same, there's where you would get off on. So we'll rotate that bit in it, and I'm pretty close right there. So we'll just take and set that clamp back on and clamp it tight. See what I got here. Just makes one more. Here we go.
Dad finished up the dados, reset and cut the combination joints, which join the two halves of the cabinet.
There's that flush trim bit. It's got the bearing on the top, cutter in it. Lock it in, set it down in here, and let me bring a shelf over. What I did this time was because we're making more than one, two in it, it always pays to make a pattern. And we made a pattern in here of 1/4 inch plywood, and I've tacked it. And you'd think the tack holes show, but no, we got them down in here, and that's the part that goes in the dado, so it covers. What it does is cut the round, it'll come back in here, and it'll cut the shape also. Save the pattern, you might need to make some more. I want to move this around. I see that I'm going to have to lower that bit just a little thing. I got to have my bearing cover following the face on it, and I lost my height in there, but there I got it. Now, I want to turn that, and we'll put a safety pin in here, and the safety pin will give me just a little protection on this far side, and you'll be able to see a little better. Let me just put this together. We'll cut these. Now, the next operation, round the front of the shelves. That's the only part that shows. And, of course, then we need a bit change. There's nobody gets as much practice changing router bits as I do. I get lots of them to change. Round over bit's going to be a quarter inch radius. And we just got a sleeve on side of it. We'll put it in here. And, of course, I've got to take the brass insert out also. Don't need that in now. And the depth of the bit's going to be set just to the full profile. So we'll pop it in here and bring it up so I can have a look down the plate. Rick always does this, and it's a great idea. You can see a lot better than if you got it in your table. And it's so easy to put down in there. So now, I've got to round those. Now, let's see. I've got to find my little hammer here and take that pattern off. I'll start at the back side here. Or someplace where I can get the hammer in. I just used some little brads in it, so there's not much there. And what I need to do is just round that down on each end in it. Now, maybe I'll put that back over again, and we'll put the safety pin back in so you can see a little better from that side in it. Need to plug in the power, and we're just about ready to go here.
Our next operation is to get the outside edges of the top cabinet here so that they're all matched to the shape. And we're going to use the pattern that Dad made for us. We are going to use, to do that, a flush trim bit. We're going to follow the bearing along the top. I've already got the height set. The only thing I want to put in place here is going to be a safety pin so that we can keep it tight to the pin. I'm going to move out to the long side edge here because we don't have anything to touch. And all we're going to do is run it along the bearing and cut the outside edge. All right, let's get it plugged in, and let's make that cut. The next operation is to cut out the inside pieces here. Let's plug it in, and let's make our cut. Sure it's in an off position. All right, let's take a look at this. Looks like we've got a nice clean cut. You want to check your pattern every time that you've done it. And it looks like I've missed a spot up here in the top corner where the sawdust is collected on the pattern. So I'm going to go one more time, start from about here and move our way up and clear out this little spot that we've missed. Other than that, the pattern looks good. I'll lay this down, my router down over here, and let's change it. And we're just going to move this one out on the outside edge here and do it off the end. And just so you folks can see, here's the block that we've got that's come out of the bottom of the piece. All right, so we'll move this one here out just a little bit. What I'm trying to do here is just line it up so that I'm outside the edge of the table so we don't have a problem with that piece chattering on us or bumping into anything on the way out. You notice where I start when I'm cutting it is just on the edge, on the end grain here, on the grain where we're going with the grain before we cut across the grain. That's the easiest material to cut. So that's where a good place to start. And we'll clamp this one down. And let's get started on the next cut. Dust some of this off of here. Back the router. Now we're on the big part, and this is where the field is a little bit sloppy. If you want to, you can put a piece of 1/4 inch material just in on the center, but make sure if you're going to do that, that you have it tacked down or nailed down in position. All right, let's cut this. Now let's see how well we've done on this one here. We've got a nice clean corner over here. We have a little bit on the edge on this one. And in the corners it starts to pile up similar to what we have in this one here. You noticed how much it piled up in that part? So we have to go ahead and come back to that and just give it one more cleanup. You want to make sure you have this all set up before you take off your pattern. All right. All right, a little bit more, give it one more pass. There we go. Now we've got it cleaned up just right. All right, I'll set this aside. I have one more to cut, and then we'll have to mold and shape the outside edges. So we'll take this one off and move it around so we have the center one. Now this is the smallest of the two. I'm going to bring it around and again plant it in the center of this so it won't give us a problem. Get this clamped up here. And we got some room over there. That's not too bad. Put this other clamp over on this side here and tighten it down. And make the last cut. Let's clear that off. Brush here. All right. Let's make the last cut here. Check it. Sure we've got it clean. Those spiral bits work just great for cutting it. And we did this all in one cut. We got a 3/8 going through some 3/4 inch oak, and it's done very well. All right. Set our router off to the side there. Let's unplug it. Our next operation is to go ahead and round over all the insides and outside edge pieces. So I'm going to need the other router. And we'll just give you a closer look at this. See how nice and clean it is on the edges, on the insides? It's going to be great. So we'll set that down. And let's clear this off a little bit. And let's get our other router here. Now I've got to change my bit. So we'll change the bit to a 1/4-inch roundover bit's the one I'm going to use now. And we'll loosen that off. Let's load. I'll put the bit in and then let's take a look at it. Don't need that insert in there anymore either. So the bit that I'm putting in here is larger than the diameter of that insert, so it's not going to help too much. In fact, you won't be able to use it. So we're going to remove that. Now, I'm going to bring this router bit out here, just so we can round over all the edges and make it smooth so you can see it. Now, it's got a bearing on the top, so it's going to follow along the top. We're going to do both the inside and outside of the rounding. So let's move the cord inside the hole here so we can get it plugged in. Drop the router in place. And let's plug it in and round over our pieces. I'm going to start off with taking my pattern off. And to do that, we're just going to be careful. We've got the pattern put in place around. Let's find an easy place here to get it started on it, because we don't want to wreck the pattern, and we don't want to wreck our pieces. We just have little brads here holding it, and they're marked, and the brad nails are put in the back, so because it's going up against the wall, there's no problem with that. And they're mounted. We mounted the brads right in the joints for the shelves. And here we go. I think we've got it off here now. We want to make sure that we pound back. Anytime that you do this, make sure that you pound all these pieces back before you get to leaving that in the shop area. You don't want anybody stepping on any nails. So we'll get that out of the way. And I'm just going to go ahead and finish off rounding off on the inside. Now, if you're going to work on the inside, make sure you keep your fingers on the outside.
Now it's time for Tips from the Workshop, Viewer Mail, and Tricks of the Trade on Rotor Bits, Tips, and Wood Chips.
This is our corner shelf, and this side here is mounted to a board which represents our wall. And what we've got, and what we're talking about here, is putting a dado or putting our shelves into our dados. Now, if you've done it on a regular way, is to mark and put the piece in place, what you end up having is the exposed joinery. Well, on this corner shelf here, what we did is a little bit different. We went ahead and made the shelf part exposed past it. So when it comes in place, it conceals the joinery. That's a neat tip. Tie it into place so that you can't see your joinery on your corner cabinets. The other thing is when we route this, we want to do stop and starts between the shelves so that they don't end or go right through. Well, we've got the sides here.
They look great.
All rounded over and finished. All we need to do is see if we can dry fit this together.
Yeah,
so we'll put that rabbit dado joint in there. And I've got the joint finished. You get the
Have a shelf.
Small shelf.
Have another shelf.
Put that one in there. We got to just get this one in there. There we go. A little bit of a
I'll get the last one.
tap and we're in. All we have to do now is sand, glue, and finish, eh?
That's it.
I hope we've inspired you to get your router out of the box, and join us next time right here in the Router Workshop.
We'd like to hear from you. You can email us at the address on your screen. Send your comments, questions, or project ideas to the Router Workshop, Post Office Box 608, Chamberlain, South Dakota, 57325. Or in Canada, the Router Workshop, Post Office Box 280, Ely, Manitoba, ROH-OHO. To learn more about the Router Workshop, visit us at the internet address on your screen. Our next episode of the Router Workshop begins a special two-part series creating a unique inlay coffee table. Bob and Rick show you how to use a beading bit to dress up the legs. You'll also learn the secrets of using the hanger bolt corner block method of mounting a tabletop to any leg system. The Inlay Coffee Table Part 1. Next time in the Router Workshop. Funding for The Router Workshop is provided in part by Hitachi Power Tools, manufacturers of a full range of construction and woodworking power tools. You can now order router bits, tips, and wood chips, a 45-minute video featuring Bob and Rick Rosendaal's personally selected shop tips and router techniques. To order your copy of this home video for $19.95 plus $4.95 shipping and handling, have your credit card ready and call 1-800-803-1449.